And let people just trickle in. I'm sure you guys heard the recording in progress. It always scares me when that comes up. But yeah, okay, Mylon, next slide. All right, well, so we did want to rep our socials. Welcome. This AAS is hosting us, Aztec Adaptive Sports, for the SDSU students who are here. Our GroupMe is definitely the best way to hear about our events and connect with us and see what's going on. So we do have the QR code there if you have your phone handy to just join in. But afterwards, you guys can always stay and we can add you on then too. But definitely give us a follow on our socials right on the left side. Instagram is definitely where we talk the most. But yeah, okay, moving on to the next.
So we are AAS, Aztec Adaptive Sports. Our goals are to educate and introduce to the SDSU community adaptive sports. One of our goals is also to ensure that SDSU students of all levels of ability have access to fitness and athletic programming from recreational to elite level. So we have some events where we can just mess around with the wheelchairs, and then we also go all the way up to having a team here, which brings us to the next slide.
Yeah, so actually, if you guys don't know this, we do have an adaptive athletics program here at State. It is the first competitive collegiate level adaptive athletics program in California, and it's really, really awesome that we have that here right in San Diego. It's really neat because AAS actually helped to build and create this program from the start. It's really new, 2019, so when most of us were still here and going to school. Right now, the program does offer ambulatory track and field. We have a few really great athletes in that team, as well as wheelchair tennis. But it's going to keep expanding. We're going to keep helping out more athletes as they come, and maybe surfing could be on there. I don't know. I'm sure Akil probably has talked to you, Parker, about it a couple times. So, but what if you guys want to follow up with the Adaptive Athletics program, go ahead and give them a follow on social media. They're very active on their Instagram. And if you want to get involved also, if you're a student here at State, be sure to shoot them an email. Reach out, see what you could do. Right now, it is a little limited with COVID. It's just a lot harder to do a lot of things that we would have normally done, and we would have welcomed more volunteers at things, but I'm sure there might be something out there for you guys. But I just wanted to give a little shout out to the program also.
Akil, did you have anything to add to that?
Is Akil here?
Was he?
No, good job. Go Aztecs.
Oh, welcome, Akil. I didn't know you could make it today. All right.
All right, without further ado, here is Dr. Jillian Stewart. She is the founder of Surf and Turf Therapy, and I'm just gonna let the video play and then we'll have her introduce herself.
My name is Jillian Stewart, and I am the founder and executive director at Surf and Turf Therapy. I'm a physical therapist and a hippotherapy clinical specialist. Hippotherapy is the use of the horse in treatment for physical, occupational, and speech therapy. Surf and Turf started 2 years ago after a handful of parents came to me asking if I knew of anyone that would take their child with special needs surfing. I had been in the hippotherapy world for about 5 years, and I saw a lot of parallels between sitting astride a surfboard and sitting astride a horse, and how we could use both of those tools to help improve balance, strength, mobility for this patient population.
My name's Neville, and we have a 4-year-old son who's named Tristan, and he's been with Jillian and Surf and Turf for about a year. So we had an interesting experience finding Surf and Turf. We, typically, like any parents going to a carnival or a fair, the kids see the horseback riding and the little pony rides, and they really want to go on it. But with us, we noticed that when Tristan would go onto the horses, he would get a sense of calmness, and that calmness would wind up translating into how his behavior was the entire day, the day after, and even his confidence. which was incredible.
I'm Jessica Dykstra, and I have 3 kiddos. Theo is 6 and he does surf, and then my other son is Jeremiah, he's 4 and he does horseback and surf. So we found out about Surf and Turf and Dr. Jillian through my son's occupational therapist out in St. Clemente. And from like my son, the 4-year-old, has had some developmental delays, some speech delays, things like that. And seeing the contrast from the first lesson of Jillian working with him and him crying and not wanting to get on the horse, and he's got some sensory issues and so he didn't like the fur and just all these different things, to about the 3rd or 4th lesson, he was looking forward to it, he was smiling, his confidence had grown, and seeing the way that Jillian just encouraged but also didn't take any nonsense, and she just pushed through it and encouraged him. It was amazing to see.
Hi, I'm Danielle Olenick, and I've been with Surf and Turf Therapy for almost 2 years now as one of the original founding board members. So Jillian saw her patients and saw the therapy that she was teaching to be beneficial with not only hippotherapy, but the surf side as well. So that was a passion and a dream of hers that she actually saw come to light because she put in hard work, countless hours. She had this amazing community behind her, patients that loved her, parents of patients that loved her, that really drove the success of the first year of Surf and Turf.
My name is Ewan Latimer, and I've been helping Jillian with Surf and Turf for about 6 months now. I help the kids by being out there in the water, helping out if they're in need, or sometimes even tandeming with them and showing them how to ride a wave. I started Surf and Turf because my brother has cerebral palsy, and he started here about a year ago. I used to come here and I would surf with him, and that just made me really enjoy coming out here and surfing with the kids.
So, surfing with Jillian is super fun. It's just exciting, and yeah.
Horseback riding, and that wasn't.
Mama,
All right. Dr. Jillian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, and thank you everyone who's taken the time to come out and learn more about all things adaptive surfing out here. It's really cool to see so many people interested in this. I feel like that's a nice little recap. We started in the fall of 2018. I am a doctor of physical therapy, and the whole reason I went to PT school was so I could do hippotherapy. Had horses my whole life. I used to volunteer as a special needs 4-H leader when I was a kid. And so I just really kind of went down that path. And in undergrad, I started surfing on a study abroad trip, and I just fell in love with it. And I saw a lot of similarities between how we were using the horse and how we were using, or how I could use a surfboard to work with people with various disabilities. And so that's kind of what led to Surf and Turf starting. We started super small, just as a passion project. I had 3 other part-time jobs. I've worked in the school, I've done hippotherapy, I've worked in clinics, I've done home health, pretty much every setting I've been in. And so I was doing all of that and just kind of did this on the side until it just got beyond where I could do that. And last year we had 28 patients a week coming, and now we're at 54 and counting. And I have 16 more surfers waiting to start as soon as it gets warm enough for me to be in the water more than 3 to 4 hours at a time. So we're really growing, finally starting to bring on a team this year. We're hiring another therapist and getting more people out there. And one unique thing about our program is we support the siblings as well, because we really want to foster strong relationships. A lot of times siblings, neurotypical siblings, kind of get left out or spend so much of their lives going from appointment to appointment, being caregivers for their sibling who might have special needs. And so we make sure that they're included and welcomed as well. And we've seen a lot of really cool progress in the relationships between kids, which is great. We work predominantly with kids. We have about 86% are under 18, but we do also have some adults we work with. I used to surf with a guy with a noxic brain injury. I have a few adults with dementia, MS, spinal cord injury, things like that. And the 3 most common diagnoses we work with are going to be cerebral palsy, autism, and Down syndrome. So, kind of a broad overview of all things surf and turf.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you started your company?
I was not very organized. I've never taken business classes or anything. I never even developed a business plan. I just kind of was meeting the needs of the community. I had a parent that had been working with me in hippotherapy for many years, and her son has Angelman syndrome. And people with this diagnosis just tend to love water. And she was like, you want to take him surfing? He's going to drown you, because they're also very strong. And so he and I just started surfing a few days a week, just because it felt fun and I wanted to do it. And then the word of mouth from that just took off. And then I left where I was doing hippotherapy at and decided to incorporate it into this, and then took about a year to get our nonprofit status. So we didn't actually become a nonprofit until like December of 2019 officially. So.
Cool.
And I'm just curious, you were mentioning a little bit about kind of where you guys are right now. How has COVID actually affected like surf and turf, and how you're working with a lot of the kids? I know that you did have a surf camp. You sent a video that happened last year during 2020. So how did that go about?
Yeah, so we, took precautions at the start. Thankfully, we're outside and we're a very intimate program. It's not like I have 20 people on site at one time. It's one-on-one, and then a small team of volunteers. So I had about 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week of volunteer support that we just stopped. And so it was literally just me and my 4-legged partners in crime. And then if people needed sidewalkers, I would have parents, I would teach the parents and the siblings how to lead the horses, how to help care for them, how to help their sibling on the horse. We had to pause the surf side for about 2 months because all the parking lots were closed and there just wasn't the accessibility. I couldn't get a lot of the people to the beach. But then when we started back up, everything just kind of took off. Like our numbers during COVID doubled, just because everything was closed. Schools weren't giving in-person support. A lot of the kids I work with weren't benefiting from telehealth. I had a girl with cerebral palsy whose adductor release surgery was canceled because it was deemed non-essential. So it's like she was just getting tighter and tighter and more pain. And so she added more time surfing. So yeah, COVID just kind of sent everything skyrocketing. It made it stressful because we couldn't fundraise or have any in-person events, but we had more and more people needing our help. So we just kind of adapted and made it work. But we're slowly trickling in with more volunteers. And then as for the summer camp, we do a therapy intensive model. So we had PT, OT, and speech each day. And we had 1 horse camp and 1 surf camp. We limited it to 6 kids. So it was like a 2-to-1 ratio. And it was like intensive therapy disguised as summer camp. And so that's how we were able to still do it. And I had a really great team of volunteers who took all the precautions really seriously. Knock on wood, we've been able to stay open this whole time and haven't had any issues. So hopefully that keeps on.
I have a question. Can you walk me through what a typical session would look like with a horse and a surf session? And what are the things that you're looking for or working on with the patients or clients?
Yeah. So everyone, regardless of which side of the program they go to, they get evaluated first to make sure that it is safe. We go through a list of precautions, contraindications, review medical history, talk about goals, and then we do an assessment on the ground and an evaluation. And then from there, we select either a board or a horse based on how much stability.
I think taco, you can add it to anything that you want.
Michelle, I think you're accidentally unmuted.
So we do an evaluation and then we decide if physical therapy, occupational therapy, or speech therapy are going to be the best fit for this individual. Some might do multiple. I have one kid who surfs with PT and he rides with OT. It really just depends. And then it's really hard as far as a typical session because it's so tailored to each individual, but we're working towards functional goals. I never am saying like, I'm teaching you to pop up today. We're working on how is that person transitioning from the ground to standing? How is their balance if they're in a crowd and they're getting bumped? And so we use the movement of the horse or the movement of the surfboard to address those things, if that makes sense. And then our horse sessions are 45 minutes long, just because we need 15 minutes to untack one horse and get the next one ready. And then our surf sessions are an hour long. And then we have varying levels of volunteers depending on how much support an individual may need, or if they're going to be riding waves more independently, we might actually have more individuals volunteering with us so they can kind of be inside keeping everybody safe. So we have everything on the surf side from people who are fully independent and they just need some specialized coaching because their body might move a little differently than someone without medical training might not understand how to coach them through that. And then we have people who are like modified independent where we can push them into waves and they can work on standing up on their own, but then we have people inside to kind of catch them and help them back out. We have people we body drag with, so we're like semi supporting the board. And then we have individuals that we're completely tandem with, both prone or prone that transition to standing. And then I also have a couple individuals, one right now who has a spinal cord injury in her neck, who I actually stay tall kneeling behind the board on her. And I'm like, I'm the adaptive surfboard for her because I can't run yet. And I'm like her backrest, and then someone pushes us into waves and I just keep her there, and then she can work on leaning and cruising into the waves. So everything in between. And for us, it's not just catching the waves. So much of our treatment is in between the waves. So it's the same things I do in the clinic, quadruped or sitting on your hands and knees, tall kneeling where you're up on your knees, and then reaching for different items. We do like treasure hunts on the beach, obstacle courses on the beach. Out in the water, we like crawl between surfboards and practice animal walks along the surfboards, all sorts of stuff. It's more than just the act of catching the wave. It's all the in between as well.
Awesome. That was so much new information for me. I'm a little curious if you want to talk a little bit more about how occupational therapy works with the horses and the surfboards, and how you do speech therapy through your program.
So being on the horse, even if they're in occupational therapy, you get 3,000 repetitions in a 30-minute period of finding and refinding your balance. So that's why it's such a good thing for PT and building core strength. But that movement is also really rhythmic and really repetitive, which is very calming to the nervous system. And so it's really used by OTs for the regulation piece a lot. Kids who might be, or an adult who might be more like a flat affect, or they might not be as alert or engaged, we can actually like choose a horse that has more concussive movement, or we might make a horse do what's called trotting, where there's like a moment of suspension, it's more bouncy to kind of help wake them up. Or if there's a kiddo who gets really overstimulated easily, we might use that, and then also work on like bringing the nervous system back and kind of getting used to that regulation piece. So putting a person backwards on a horse, having them prop on their hands, weight bearing through their arms, they're getting compression all through their joints from their wrists, their elbows, all the way up. And that's really soothing and calming as well. So it's tailoring the movement for that regulation piece. And then also on the horse side, we do a lot of like buckles, like putting things on the horse and fastening buckles, or grip strengthening, steering and pulling the reins, chopping carrots, breaking carrots, holding the bucket while horses are pushing in to feed, for upper extremity strengthening. And then on the surf side, it's very similar as far as the regulation and movement piece. If a kiddo is more of a flat affect, we're going to try to be like right in the whitewash, catching like wave after wave after wave, getting them a lot of movement, kind of waking them up. Some of our kids who get way too stimulated, we might go to the channel or paddle out past the waves and do some more like deep pressure. Naturally, if you're taking someone tandem, there's a lot of proprioceptive input and a lot of calming input, because your chest is right on their pelvis. And so it's giving a lot of that deep pressure to them already, along with the compression of the wetsuit and then water itself. And then from a OT standpoint, Again, we're working on like hand strength when you're pressing up, arm back strength, and again, that deep pressure proprioceptive input through your arms. And then same thing as far as buckles, like fastening life jacket buckles. Pulling on a wetsuit takes a serious amount of grip strength and coordination. And those are, ADLs, which OTs focus on as well. So like donning and doffing clothes and booties and all of those things. So they work a lot on the same thing you would in the clinic. We just use a surfboard. It's that's really kind of the whole point. Is I always tell people, if I give you a note from the horse, the water, and the gym, you shouldn't be able to tell which is which, because we're working on functional life skills no matter what we're in. And then the speech side, a lot of it is just the fact that both of these activities are so motivating that it encourages people to communicate. On the horse, the way your pelvis is, it naturally encourages you to sit more upright, and it puts your diaphragm in a position where you're able to produce better sounds. And I'm not a speech therapist, obviously, so I'm just speaking to what I've been told. But that motivational piece, getting the horse to move or asking for more of things that they prefer in the water, is really a big piece of it.
Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions for Jillian? If they want to ask, you can also throw them in the chat and we'll ask them. Looks like there's a question from Parker, I think, but someone answered it, but I'll just ask it so everyone can hear. Where are you guys located?
So we typically surf out at Doheny in Dana Point. Sometimes we'll do like special outings other places, but it was really interesting. I have a kid I surfed with like 3 days a week at Doheny, and it was like pulling teeth to get him out of the water. He loved it so much he would never want to get out. And I took him to Linda Lane, which is a sand break, and it's much more like sensory overload. Like it was just kind of constant waves, like walled up dumping. And after about 20 minutes, he actually took my hand and took me out of the water. So it really gave me an appreciation for just like how different, the waves can be used. And I say it's just like prescribing medicine, right? Like we have to prescribe the right type of wave and the right amount of wave for the certain individuals that we're working with.
Awesome. Justin, do you have a question?
Yeah. So you did mention about volunteering, that you're starting to get volunteers in. I know that actually a few people on board, we have experience doing equestrian therapy, such as myself. I did it for about 6 or 7 years now. So it's really awesome to like hear you talk about it. And I totally know what you're talking about when you're working like with the kids. And it's always really awesome to like see their smiles and like excitement when they're on the horse. And then it's really neat because we have worked probably primarily with Waves for All when a lot of our members would go out and help with a lot of people surfing. So I'm curious about if you are open with volunteers regarding COVID, or is that like kind of still limited at the moment?
No, we definitely need volunteers, especially because, like I said, I have 14 more people to get in just on the surf side. And so for each person, we typically have 1 to 3 volunteers scheduled. So at 50 plus people a week, that's like 150 to 200 spots of volunteers needed. So we definitely need volunteers. At the barn, we take temperatures, wash hands, wear masks, all of that. The beach, we have tried everything, and you just feel like you are getting waterboarded wearing masks. And so thankfully all the literature is very promising as far as like being outside and in sunlight and all of that. So we do take temperatures, and we're overly cautious. Like if anyone feels anything less than 100%, no one comes. But yes, we are open to volunteers and would be happy to have anyone and everyone. I can send you our volunteer intake form.
Yeah.
And you just email that back to volunteer@surfandturftherapy.org, and we can get you on the schedule. So the way our volunteering works is we try to have the same person at the same time slot each week so that you can build rapport with the patient, so that 1, it's more fun for everybody involved, and 2, it's safer, it's more effective. We're not having to retrain each week how we might handle a certain movement for somebody, or handling technique or support for each person. So we usually ask people to try to commit to kind of like the same time or time frame on a weekly basis. But obviously we understand if you need to take a week off here and there.
Yeah. Whoa, that's awesome. That like made me so excited. So I will definitely reach out to you afterwards too. I'm pretty sure a lot of our members would be interested. So if you needed the help, we're more than glad to help out.
Especially we're doing summer camp again this year, and due to the demand from last year, and we're already getting a lot more interest this year because we won like a local award for best summer camp. So everybody's like already calling me asking about it. So we are probably going to do 2 of each summer camp this year, which we need more volunteers for sure. So if people can't do every week, there are opportunities to do more kind of like random, days here and there as well through that.
Awesome. Okay, great. And then I guess kind of to end off before we get to our next panelist, Jillian, is there anything that any advice actually that you would have for some of our members here? Most of us are kinesiology/health majors, and a lot of us are interested in working in adaptive athletics or sports and working with people with varying disabilities or, handy abilities. So I'm curious, what advice that you have for us as students, moving forward, going into this field.
Yeah, just take every opportunity you can to learn from different people and get, I like to say everybody I learned from gave me like a different tool to put in my toolbox. And so I've done therapy with people bowling, we've gone go-kart racing, we go and do ropes courses. It's as effective, if not more effective, than being in the clinic. So just be ready to be really creative in these settings if you want to turn it into a long-term career that you can support yourself off of. But don't be afraid to go for it. And I really feel like now everything's really expanding and becoming more and more accepted, and more people are kind of open to these non-traditional options. So yeah, just keep looking for the opportunities to learn, and don't be afraid to just try something and kind of step out of the box a little bit.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any other questions for Dr. Jillian? I'm gonna share. Oh, there's one more question. Claudia asks, what are the challenges with surfing or working in an uncontrollable environment? Do you want to start with that one, or should I read the whole thing? It's pretty long.
I'm reading it right now. It's okay. Conditions don't make surfing available. Okay. So usually I'm going to kind of start from the bottom up, actually. Usually we are able to surf unless it's rained recently. We even surf year round, even in the cold. I get really nice gear and booties for everybody. I even have gloves that make them look like cartoons, because the smallest gloves you can get are still not small enough. So they have like these little arms and these big gloves, but keeps them warm. Usually they don't get too disappointed, because it's very few and far between when we do have to cancel. If we are unable to go in the water, like I said, it's so much more than catching the waves themselves. We do obstacle courses on the beach. We bring in different activities to do on the beach, like I said, like buried treasure hunts, where we're doing it like in different positions to work on hip strength or core strength, or if they're more OT based, then we'll be using different tools like rakes and shovels and for things like that. So that's kind of what we do, if not, or we also do community integration and park therapy as well. So if it's not actively raining, but it rained recently and we can't get in the water, we will offer to transition and go to a park instead. So then we help kids learn how to navigate different playground equipment. And then we do a lot of parent education as well, so that it carries over and that they can keep kind of working on these skills and feel comfortable taking their kids to different parks, and kind of help with some of the isolation and things that is unfortunately happening even more so with COVID right now. And then surfing in an uncontrollable environment. Thankfully, Doheny is a very consistent wave. We're very fortunate. That's why I chose it to do my program out of. But that being said, it is also like everyone else knows that. So it's a very crowded beginner wave with people who don't have a lot of surf etiquette. And I've had parents literally like shove their kid on a foam board in front of me on a 12-foot SEP with like a 100-pound teen tandem, and then say like, it's fine, they're on a foamy. And I'm like, it's not fine. Like, you're going to hurt somebody. So that is really challenging. I really try to just educate the people around me as far as like, it's an uncontrollable environment being the ocean, but the things I can control, I try to kind of gently provide some feedback to try to make it safer. And I just always err on the side of safety. I have a couple students right now and I'm really training them, and it's helping me to realize exactly all the things I think about them and planning for. So you just have to constantly be aware. Like I see videos of myself with kids and I'm like, the whole time, like you are looking up, down, everywhere all the time. So that you're not in control of the environment, but you're in control of how you respond to it and how you're going to plan for it. And so I think a big thing too is just realizing that it's for the work I'm doing, it's not about getting like the biggest, best, most crazy wave. It's about the function and the safety and the efficacy. And so it's setting yourself up for the most success and safety in that regard, if that all makes sense.
Awesome.
I have a question.
Mhm.
I was wondering, so you're a PT, and I was wondering if you're also a clinical instructor, and
I am, yeah.
Oh, you are?
I
Okay.
have 2 students right now, actually.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take students from SDSU. I have 1 PT student right now, and then I have an OTD doing her residency.
I think our students would be very happy to hear that. Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
I agree. All right. I'm gonna share my screen with, oh wait, let me redo it. Sorry. Okay. These are Dr. Jillian's socials, her website, her YouTube, her IG, Facebook, and her email. I think, like you said, if we're interested in volunteering, we go to your website.
Mhm.
And
Or
fill out-
just email me directly. And
Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions or anything to add? Jillian, do you have anything to add?
I'm gonna be here. I'm just gonna pop in and out. We actually have an adaptive polo team right now. So I told them once I was done talking, I'd pop out and make sure that their drill made sense and then come back. So if I'm
Yeah,
in and
no
out, that's why.
Yeah, no
But I
worries.
will hear from all the other panelists, so I will be around.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you,
if you
guys.
guys want her socials, we'll send the slides out at the end too. So don't worry if you can't catch these at the moment.
Yeah, or take a picture really quick. Who would like? Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. Okay, so because we did know about the time crunch with Jillian, we weren't able to introduce our 3 surfers here today. So before I go straight into Quinn, I actually did want to give a chance for all 3 of you guys to just like introduce yourselves, maybe even give like a highlight of your weekend. I know you guys are all out there this week, just before we get into the next ones. So Quinn, you could start.
Hi guys, my name's Quinn Qaitley. I'm an adaptive surfer for Team USA, prone assist division specifically. And yeah, this weekend was fun. I actually competed with Parker and Jacob, but Parker and I were actually in the same heat, which was fun for me. I don't get to surf against him that often. Yeah, and I actually killed it. It was like one of the best surf sessions of my life, and I had one of the best water safety teams I could have during a contest, and the waves were insane, but I was actually calm the whole time and actually like able to surf, and I didn't wipe out on one wave. And I got the highest wave count of the heat in 15 minutes, and I think I caught like 5 waves in 15 minutes, which is
Wow.
very surprising after I heard that. And so I got second. I thought I was gonna win, but I lost to my buddy Jose. I love him dearly, but I'm still kind of sad that I lost. But yeah, that was pretty much my weekend, and then I just hung out with my sister yesterday and had fun, and that was my weekend.
All right. Parker, what did you think about that heat, huh?
Well, if you have to get beat by someone, it might as well be someone on the U.S. national team. But I don't feel bad. I'm like, it's Quinn. Of course she beat me. If she didn't, I'd be very upset. But I'm really glad that I got to surf with her and Jacob. Jacob was there too, but he wasn't in our heat. But it was really fun. Terrible conditions, but I wasn't mad at all. It was really fun, and I was stoked that I got to surf with all of you guys, and then like see them on the panel. I was like, I just saw you like yesterday almost. It was a fun experience for sure.
And Jacob?
Hello, everybody. Yeah, this weekend was quite insane. My name is Jacob Pacheco. I'm an adaptive surfer. Recently did a big wave contest back in December, and I was out there with these legends on Saturday. Sorry, it's been a long weekend. But yeah, it was pretty epic. Conditions were gnarly, but we all went out there and gave it our best shot. And as Parker likes to say, it's cleaning up and getting better all the time. And his dad also says that too. But yeah, it was pretty epic to share the water with these guys and ladies. And yeah, looking forward to the panel. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming. It's nice to see your competitive spirits coming out, and also your friendships are really heartwarming. I was like smiling the whole time. You guys are so sweet. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna share my screen now.
Okay, so we had Quinn introduce herself, but I did want to just give another introduction. We do have a U.S. national team surfer here, and I did mark that you did get second place in your heat, which was really, really awesome. Thank you so much for sharing these photos also. And we do have a video of Quinn before we get into some questions with her. So.
This is my second year, so the fact that I won this year, I'm just speechless. It means everything. Like being out there, it's just my happy place.
Quinn has started surfing 3 or 4 years ago. She's always loved the water, and we figured out how to get her out on the board, and she just loves it. Quinn is one of 4 identical girls, quadruplets. We spent a whole lifetime. The girls used to just drag Quinn to every event, up the stairs, across the gravel, and so they've helped make who she is. And we have a nonprofit called Team Quinn. We take kids out surfing and adults. Some have never been in the water, and it's really exciting.
What do you say to other people out there who think maybe they can't do what you're doing?
They need to come to this event because it's one of the hardest things to go to if you're disabled, like just the sand and everything. So the fact that they're here, it's just amazing.
What about winning at Duke's Ocean Fest? Because he's such a legendary waterman.
I get it. Like, I have no words. I'm stoked.
All right, awesome. Yeah. So actually, Quinn, I guess our first question is, so surfing is still like, you're really, really into it, but in that video, which I believe was 2018, you said that you had just started about 2 years before that, correct?
Yeah, so I pretty much started surfing when I was 20, but I didn't start competing till I was like a little after I turned 21 or right before. Yeah, but Duke's was like not the first big contest that I won, but since it was in Hawaii and it's, if you surf, if you win that such legendary event, it's like a huge deal. So yeah, that was like my first big, like, I just won this event, like what is happening? But yeah.
No, it's awesome. So before actually we get into surfing, I do know that you do a lot of other sports. So I'm curious, can you tell us like what else do you participate in? And I know you also work out with Coach AJ from Adaptive Athletics too. So can you tell us a little bit about
Yeah, so I've been in adaptive sports since I was 6, so it's coming up on 20 years, which is insane because I just turned 26 on March 12th, so it's like 19 to 20 years. And I grew up playing wheelchair basketball, wheelchair tennis, wheelchair rugby, and different sports at camps. And I grew up horseback riding with my grandparents and everything. So I love horses and all that. But I really got into the sport WCMX. I don't know if you guys know it, but it's like wheelchair skateboarding. So in high school, I was like a total skater chick, and like that's all I wanted to do. And my dad tried his hardest to get me to go surf and do all that, but all I wanted to do was skateboard. And I'm like, no, I'm not surfing. And I actually was one of the top women for skating in 2016. So I became pro out of high school and just started skating and got thrown into a couple documentaries, and I quit skating let's see, a couple years ago. I kind of fell out of love with it, and I fell more in love with surfing, and it was way softer on my body. So yeah, so I started surfing, I would say like 4 or 5 years ago. So
Impressive.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what is it like being a quadruplet?
Oh my God, yes, actually.
Okay. So I guess I will explain the whole story. So I'm actually one of 7 girls in my family. My parents had 3 girls, and then they tried to have 1 more and got 4 identical quadruplet girls with no fertility. So there's actually 7 of us. But yeah, so it's crazy. Honestly, all my sisters are all my best friends, and I couldn't imagine life without them. You love, you hate them, you love them, and then you hate them. So my life would not be the same without them. And I'm very competitive because of my family. So yeah, it's crazy. It's the wheels never stop going. Like it's a roller coaster all the time.
Do you guys like I have a twin brother, but in my head he's like older than me because he was born first.
Yeah.
Do you guys like do that? Is there like a first, second, third, and fourth?
Yes, there is. And like sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm older than Sydney, but I'm older like by a minute.
Yeah, me too.
But then Maddie, who's like the baby out of like the whole family, she's the tallest and she acts like the mom. And sometimes I'm like, okay, you're the baby. I'm 2 minutes older than you. And she just looks at me. She's like, really?
Yeah.
So yes, we do that, and it happens.
Okay, so back to surfing, I guess. What's your favorite thing about surfing?
I was just asked this question on Saturday. So, there's a couple things, but I would say my favorite thing about surfing is just to be able to get out of my wheelchair and onto the board and into the water. And there's just nothing like it. And yeah, that's probably my favorite part, is just to leave it on the beach and I'm like, okay, see ya. Like, I'm gonna go do my thing.
Yeah. You mentioned that you have a water safety team. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So my division, we're one of the divisions that need the most help in the water. So it's mainly quadriplegics from the neck down who can't paddle. So we have what's called a water safety team. So normally you have a pusher that pushes you into the wave, and then you have catchers to catch you and bring you back out. So the water safety team is like very important, and I know Parker's dad, Kevin, has been my water safety team, and honestly, I'm trying to poach him from Parker when he moves into the prone division. Yeah, so the water safety team is really cool and they're very helpful. And honestly, sometimes they're more stoked than I am out in the water. Like all my friends that came out catching me, they were just like kind of jumping in the water, and I'm like, turn me around, like come on, I gotta catch another wave. Like stop like being so excited.
They're like your cheerleaders.
So it's so fun, and my family comes out and they like being my water safety team. So like my older sister McKenna was catching me, and we were just like smiling, laughing, joking in the water, and she was like running after me. She's like, go, 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 and then she would try to like grab my foot so I wouldn't like beach it. So we were just laughing the whole time.
That's so funny. Are the catchers, they're not on surfboards, are they just on the beach? They're just walking?
So it depends on the conditions of that day, but sometimes you have people that are in the middle, like swimming, like just treading water if someone dies out in the beginning, and then you have people on the sand. And then if it depends on the conditions. If the rip current is so gnarly, we have a chair team that focus on the chairs. Then we have to get out of the water into the beach chairs, and then they run us down the beach while the clock is still going to get us like back into the water. So yeah, they help us a lot.
Awesome. So how many people is that on your team?
It varies. Honest.
Yeah.
So for the big contest, you can only have 2 to 3 helpers, and like, so you have a pusher out the back that has to push you and then swim halfway in. So for the worlds, only your catcher can help you, and they have other water safety team to like flip you over, but they're not allowed to put you on the board until your catcher like swims over to put you on the board. So those contests, they get very specific with those rules.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Have you ever surfed in Santa Cruz?
No, I have not. It's very cold water, so
Yeah.
I am not surfed in Santa Cruz. I surfed all up and down San Diego. I've surfed in Costa Rica and Hawaii. And yeah, I'm down to surf other places. I'm very kind of scared of Santa Cruz, mainly because of like, I don't know, people have told me about the atmosphere there and like how the locals can be, and I'm just like, yeah, let's not go do that. Like,
I feel that, but Cowles is always fun, and there's such long waves. One day, maybe.
Hopefully one day.
There's a question, I think, from Parker. What do you do when the waves are really big? What's your scariest experience?
Oh my gosh. Well, my scariest experience was, I don't know if Parker was there for that event, but it was a WSA event, and the WSA events have done really well, including adaptive, but sometimes their main focus isn't necessarily on like the water safety. And we had, do you guys remember all the rainstorms last year, the year before, when it was just like super gnarly and raining like all through December? So the contest was right after that, and they still had the contest, and my dad was like, okay, we're going up to Huntington. And I'm like, okay, we get there. And there's barely any water safety. We had a few other people, but then we only had my dad, a couple of my sisters, and my mom. And the waves were just massive. Like it was cloudy out, it wasn't pretty, and it was just the rip current was so gnarly. And so I go out there. My dad's technically my coach, so I can never be like scared in front of him. And I was just sitting there. I just started praying. I'm like, oh dear Lord, like why do I do this sport? Like I'm cold. I don't want to be here right now. And so we were able to get out there, and right when the wave starts, my dad just sends me on pretty much the best wave of the heat. And I ended up, the wave just died, like in the middle of the ocean. And so when there are no waves, I'm not stable on my board, so I flipped over. But the sets were so big that my water safety team didn't see me in between the sets. They thought I was still surfing. So I took like 6 to 8 foot waves on the head, and I only weigh 98 pounds. So I was just getting thrown like a rag doll every which way. But my dad just started swimming in because I wasn't coming back out. And he's like, where is she? Like what the heck is happening? And by the time he got to me, it was just like, mentally, I was done. I was like, this is how I die. Like, I was praying to Jesus. I was like, I don't want to drown. Like, I don't want to die. I want to get out of the water. And he just swam up to me, and I was crying like so hard. He's like, did you break a bone? And I was like, no. And he's like, okay, you're fine. And he puts me back on the board, and he's like, there's like 5 more minutes left in the heat. And then we have my buddy Mike Pingador, who's like a paraplegic who can swim. He couldn't swim either. So like one of my sisters had to go save him. And then by the time she saw me, she's like, oh, Quinn's fine. She's floating. Like she's okay. And like afterwards, I just surfed in. I ended up getting 4th place out of 4. And I just came on the beach crying. My buddy Mike Pingador, he was crying. He's like, I thought I was gonna drown, and I was just sitting there. I was like, no one talked to me. Like I'm so done with surfing. So that was by far my scariest experience I've ever had. I had to tread water for maybe 5 minutes by myself, which is a doggy paddle, which isn't that well, and I had a vest on, but yeah, I'm still here. I'm still surfing.
Oh
but yeah.
Goodness, that sounds so scary, Quinn. I can't even imagine. I teach like adaptive swim occasionally, or I've taught it in the past, and yeah, for 5 minutes treading, that's really impressive. So I think Kevin has a story.
I think you should share. A great story, and I'm not sure if Quinn was scared this particular day, but I was certainly scared this particular day, and I'm pretty comfortable in the ocean most of the time, having grown up in and around the waves, and I'm now Parker's pusher, and I've done water safety with Quinn, and I've worked a couple of these events, and this particular day, I think Quinn was at US Open 2 years ago that I was catching for you in Oceanside.
Yeah, were you like one of the middle guys?
Yeah, so being one of the middle guys, what she's saying is that you really touch the bottom, and you just have to swim wherever Quinn happens to surf. And like Quinn mentioned earlier, she catches 5 waves in 15 minutes. So as an old, out of shape waterman, we get our workout that day. And this particular day in Oceanside, it was one of those days where the waves were what, as a water safety person, I would describe as gnarly. So well overhead, and when the conditions are well overhead and we get through what we call these cleanup sets, a cleanup set basically wipes out everything in its way between where it decides to break and where it stops on the beach. And Quinn had taken one of the early waves of one of these cleanup sets and had ridden it to its end, which put her kind of in the middle position where I was then to catch her. And where she stopped was where the next cleanup set of waves was going to break. And so there are Quinn and I together in what you would probably describe as the Mount Everest death zone. There's no escape from here. There's not enough oxygen to survive, and it's only a matter of time before you're going to die. And so there I am with Quinn. We managed to get under the first wave of the set. About the time the second wave arrives, Dave, Quinn's dad, who's her pusher, arrives on the scene. So now it's all three of us there, and kind of the biggest wave of the set, which I don't know, was an 8 or 10 foot wave that day, is just going to destroy us. And I have visions of this being the last time that I see Quinn and Dave and my family and the rest of the people on the planet. And this monster wave does. It literally crashes right on us. We could not have been in a worse spot. And I go through this washing machine, as it's described by surfers, where all the limbs are going every which way. You're getting thumped on the bottom. You think, oh, great, it's over. I'm coming toward the top. Nope, to then go through the second rinse cycle and you just get tumbled around again. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, now I've killed Quinn. Dave's going to be mangled. I'm not going to survive this. I come up and I'm now in the pilings of the pier and I don't see Quinn or Dave anywhere. They've just disappeared. So my assumption is, well, they must just be dead. They've just been obliterated and are gone off the planet. And now I'm getting swept toward the pilings of the Oceanside Pier. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm toast. And to this day, Quinn, I now am a firm believer in divine intervention, because that is the only way that the three of us survived that fully intact. And at the end of the smiling, happy-go-lucky, no problems. But I'll tell you, Quinn, I don't know if you were scared or if your dad was scared. I was scared.
I was probably terrified after that. I vaguely remember, like, because I know I don't have control over my body anyway, but like, I've definitely been ripped from my dad's hand, like underneath the water. And my dad is a strong man, and just the force of being ripped from his hands underneath the water, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna be by myself. So I try to like hang on to my board so I know exactly where it is. And I'm like somersaulting with my board under the water so it doesn't nail me or anyone else. And I'm just like, well, I hope my dad's okay, and I hope someone eventually comes to grab me. So yeah, I just remember being ripped from his hands, but then later someone must have grabbed me because I'm here. But I don't know who grabbed me at that point.
That makes me never want to surf ever again. And I'm a pretty good swimmer, and that makes me never ever want to surf. So thank you for that, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do have a couple questions, but we do want to get to Parker actually too. So before that, I did want to share that Quinn has, we have our Instagram. We also have Team Quinn Surf up here too, if you guys want to check them out. And we have her Facebook. And then I'm just going to give a little shout out to, we have Coach AJ actually helps train Quinn every now and then. And he does post videos of her training as well as vice versa. So if you want to see her on his Instagram, it's there too, AJ True Strength. So definitely she's all over the place, and she's here with, we got SDSU alum working with her too. So check her out. And Quinn, do you have anything to add? I know we ended off with that story.
Honestly, surfing is very fun. I do not recommend going out and big surf. If you like to surf, start with the small stuff. I even love the small surf. I'm like, ooh, it's my size. Like, let's go have fun. So, but yeah, surfing's fun. I feel like people should try it. Please do not be scared of my story. I have survived, and those have all been competitions where I have to go out. So I love surfing. It's fun. People should try it. And yeah, look at the Team Quinn Surf. We have a nonprofit based out in Coronado, but we do go like around California, like La Jolla or Cardiff. So we like putting on local events, and we focus on smaller groups. So we're more attentive with getting the new surfers out. And we really like focusing on teaching people about water safety and what they should do. And honestly, just getting the community together and the siblings as well. So it's fun. Surfing's fun. I love it. Thanks.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you for sharing, Quinn. We're going to move on to Parker. Parker, look at that list. Surfer, sled hockey, and CP advocate. Adaptive prone finalist, Western Surfing Association championship, along with Jacob Pacheco. We're going to play a little video of Parker kneeboarding.
We decided to mute it because it's real loud.
It's like someone cheering for him. He's doing so good, but she's like, woo! Maybe that's your mom. I don't know.
No, it's my mom.
Such a proud mama. That's how my mom would be.
No, but look at him. Backwards. And then I think the end of the video is my favorite. Just it's coming on.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good.
Okay. All right. Parker, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Parker Olenick. I'm 16 years old, about to be 17 actually. I have cerebral palsy, and I've been a competitive surfer for about 3 years, I want to say. I'm actually not quite sure on that number, but it feels like way longer than 3 years.
Wow. Okay, so how long have you been involved in the adaptive sports community, like surfing included and other sports?
Well, adaptive sports, I want to say I started really getting into them when I was 12 years old, probably, because like Quinn, I was ultra competitive and tired of not just being included. I wanted to beat everybody and I wanted to win. And I kind of just started Googling stuff like competitive sports for kids with CP, and surfing came up, even though I wasn't really interested at the time until more recently, because I was scared of the ocean. And then I really found hockey, and it really helped because there was the World Championships like 2 months before, so there was all new footage, and it was kind of getting more and more popularity, and I was part of that group to watch it and then go, oh hey, this is a thing, I'm gonna try this. And now I think 4 years later, from playing hockey and 3 years from playing or from surfing, I'm here today. So
awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty
so
stoked.
you play sled hockey in San Diego?
Yeah, surprisingly enough, there's a team in San Diego. We're actually sponsored by the Anaheim Ducks, and it's always really funny when we go to these national contests. People are always like, there's hockey in San Diego, and then we're like, yeah, there's hockey in San Diego, and then we actually beat them, which is even more surprising.
It's like the Jamaican bobsled team.
Exactly.
There's a movie about it, but yeah. I had a question and I forgot what it was. Oh, it sounds like is your dad a surfer? I'm surprised you didn't get into surfing earlier.
Well, that was the thing. At the time, any of the stuff my dad wanted me to get into, of course, I had no interest in. And
Yeah.
it took many years of other people really trying to get me into surfing, including Quinn. But until I went to this summer camp and actually met the team captain of the U.S. adaptive team, and he said, if you're not surfing by the next time I'm where you live, we're gonna have issues. And I said, okay, I'll start surfing now. So of course I went home and said, Dad, can I go to the ocean?
How did you get over your fear of the ocean?
Well, I realized at first it was something uncontrollable and big and scary, and it still is. But now I feel that that's the appealing part of it. It's big and scary and it's uncontrollable. It's like going and riding your favorite roller coaster every day, except that roller coaster is changing because it's in an unstable environment. And really it's just the adrenaline rush. You don't get that anywhere else.
Yeah. I see you have your surfboards in the back and they have some handles on them. Can you tell us how you modify your equipment?
Yeah, well, of course, I don't stand up on a surfboard. That's a no for me. And so the way I can adapt, much like Quinn and Jacob's, we have similar setups, is I take hose and a bike handle and bolt them into my boards because you want them to be in there solid, because a lot of the waves that me and Quinn surf, they're not the lightest of waves. We surf some pretty heavy surf. So you want to feel solid and really connected to your board.
Nice. So you have a bike handle on there?
Mm-hmm. That's drilled into the board.
Nice. Do you have your own sled hockey sled?
Well, with every piece of adaptive equipment, it's not like you can just go out and buy a baseball glove and go out and buy shoes. It has to be custom. And with using a lot of grants and connections that I knew, I was able to get this really nice new custom gear that I really needed.
Awesome. So which do you like more, surfing or hockey?
I hate when people ask me that because I really can't answer it.
Yeah.
I know that I'll be able to surf for a lot longer than I'm going to play hockey, but right now I'm going to do both as long, and I'm going to try and go as far as I can. Yeah. Best case scenario, I want to be the second athlete ever to get gold in winter and summer games.
Ooh, that's a nice goal. That actually is so funny you say that, because one of our questions is, what's the question that you get the most, and what's your least favorite question to get?
They're probably the same question. I don't like having to pick between my two sports, hockey and surfing. And oftentimes the schedules kind of intersect. So I have to figure out, like, okay, which one's more important? And that's always hard because you both think they're really important. And when I go to one event, I feel like I'm letting some people down. When I go to the other, I feel like I'm letting my team down. So it was really hard to kind of balance it all.
Yeah. So you mentioned you want to get gold in the Olympics, winter and summer. So do you want to be a professional surfer and sled hockey player? Is that your career goal?
Well, if everything works out, I just do what Quinn did with skating, is turn pro out of high school, except I do that with surfing. But I know that probably won't happen, although I'm hopeful. But I'm gonna continue surfing and hockey. Always gonna be a part of my life, no matter what I do.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, Akil's here, I think, still, and I bet he wants to know if you're interested in coming to SDSU and competing here.
I'm very interested in staying in San Diego, and of course SDSU is one of the options, and by far for adaptive sports it's the best and only option, but it's still really good, and I'm really stoked I want to go check it out soon because I'm a junior, so I'm getting close to having to make that decision. But for sure, I've been talking with him a lot.
Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions for Parker that they would like to ask? You can also throw them in the chat.
So I did
want to ask.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to ask because you did talk about you wanting to stay in San Diego, and so I'm curious if you think that you would have had the same opportunities and experiences if you didn't live here in like the San Diego area and like it being kind of a hub of like opportunity with adapted sports.
Well, there's a lot of really strong programs everywhere. And knowing my parents, even if we weren't in San Diego, I'd probably still be doing cool stuff. And I'm just happy with where I'm at. And I know like anywhere I go, even if I'm outside of San Diego, which I love to travel, which is highly likely, I'm going to be stoked anywhere.
Quinn asks, what's the biggest wave you've surfed?
That's a really hard question. Not in California, probably Hawaii, because 2018 is when Hurricane Lane came through and I was almost stuck in Hawaii and missed my first day of freshman year. But I went out the day after the contest, and it was really funny because the contest was about 1 to 2 foot waves, and then overnight it was probably 7 to 8 foot waves. And my dad said, we don't have to go out if you don't want to. And I said, I need something cool to talk about on my first day of high school. So of course we went out, and it was really funny because the lifeguards were out on the beach going, nobody go in the water. And then there was just a line of empty wheelchairs because we were all in the water. And the wave was about really far out. I don't know the distance, but when we got out there was a lady sitting next to us, and my dad pushes me on the biggest wave of my life. And the lady turns around, did you really just send your kid on that? And he goes, yeah. And it was the biggest blue wall ever. And it was Hawaii, so it was still, I still felt kind of calm because I'd be like, oh, there's a big scary wall. And then I'd be like, oh, there's a turtle, there's a dolphin, there's a rainbow. So it was chaos and also pure joy at the same time. And I made the wave, I didn't fall, and I was in the kind of channel, and I said, Dad, I'm gonna just get that one wave. I'm done. I made it. Leave on a high note. I'm good. How many feet was it? I want to say 7 to 8 foot, probably. That's a good bet. But in California, I'd probably say 7 foot. It's a lot different because it's a lot colder. You kind of have to pick and choose different waves, and they're less consistent. So it's difficult to say.
My goodness. Parker, your dad said it took him 30 minutes to swim back to the beach.
Oh yeah, that's taking it lightly. It was probably more.
Wow. All right, I'm gonna share my screen with your socials up. Does anyone have any other questions for Parker? More questions? All right, well, I look forward to seeing you in the Summer and Winter Olympics.
Yeah, thank you.
And competing for SDSU.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and Justin, you want to do this?
Yeah, okay. So we have our last panelist here before we get into a few things. So we have Jacob Pacheco, who is also a professional athlete, surfer, and he also is a professional speaker. He goes out, he speaks at a lot of events, and we do have a video, Jacob, actually, that we really liked that we found on your website. We did some snooping, and so we wanted to play that one.
We did a lot of snooping.
I was raised that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right and I'm going to win.
regardless of circumstance. And that's what I want to empower others to do, is like, go out and get what you want. Today is the day you do something, even if it's just one small step. It's something to help get you in the right direction, because time waits for no one. I believe anybody is capable of living their dreams, doing exactly what they want to do. I always felt like I wasn't good enough, and because I was always walking in two worlds. I'd never felt fully accepted by the adaptive world, and I've never felt fully accepted by the able-bodied world. So it's like you try to find this medium, and like, oh, I feel like I never can do enough. I'm trying to prove myself, and it changed to I am good enough. Of course, I asked the question as a kid, why me? Why did this happen? And then over time, it transformed to why not? This is pretty awesome. Sure, you struggle every once in a while. Like, it can be a challenge. I'm not saying it's not a challenge. I understand being bitter. I understand being in pain and hurting inside and out. I understand all that. I went through all of that as a kid. I was never perfect. If I took away cerebral palsy, I probably wouldn't have the same kind of drive, the same kind of mentality. It's literally the greatest gift that has ever been given to me, because it allows me to give more to others.
Let me hear your roar. Let Los Angeles hear you roar.
I was raised.
Alrighty.
I don't miss those facial hair days at all, guys. That wasn't a good look.
It was the trend.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to ask, how did you get involved with adaptive sports? What is your what were your experiences in that?
So I grew up in the 90s, so it was a bit different for my time. There was some opportunity, but I grew up in Sacramento area, Northern California. I got to experience Challenger baseball when I was a kid from about age 6 to 8. After that, kind of fell off of a cliff. There wasn't a lot of opportunity out there, so you had to make your own opportunity. I played sports with a lot of able-bodied athletes: soccer, wrestling, football, track and field, you name it, I gave it a shot. I discovered adaptive sports in 2015, 2014, when I moved down to Southern California for graduate school. And I also discovered it in 2009 when I tried out for the US Paralympic soccer team, but it just didn't work out. Cerebral palsy threw a wrench into those plans. I just wasn't capable enough to compete at that level for Paralympic soccer. But when I came down here in 2014 for grad school, a lot of things changed for me over the course of the years. And so I met some great humans like Parker, like his father, like Quinn, and Jill, who've all had amazing impacts on my life. And it's been a great journey ever since. And I've actually met Coach Whitehead. I think he's done a great job with SDSU. I think you all have done a great job. It's kind of been my experience with adaptive sports, little snapshot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Justin, are you still with us?
Yeah, am I not showing up?
You turned your camera off, I think.
Okay. Well, so then I'm curious, how did you find out about surfing specifically, and why has that been one of your passions?
Oh, that's a great story. So I discovered it when I was about 22, 23. I actually saw it on TV at an Islands Burger Shop. How many of you here know about Islands Burger Shops? So they have great surfing footage. It's a Hawaiian themed restaurant for burgers, and I love burgers. I saw surfing a lot on their TVs. It's almost everywhere. And I was like, I want to try that. And my mentor and coach at the time was like, yeah, you should. He's like, it'd be really good for your disability. That man trained me ever since I was 12 years old. So we have a very tight bond. And I trust his opinion. So before I moved down to Long Beach State, I experienced Bolsa Chica State Beach in Huntington. For those of you who don't know about Huntington Beach, Kevin can tell you, and Parker can tell you, and Quinn can tell you, it's just a wall city, but I love Huntington Beach because that's where I surf. But my first experience with the ocean in the surfing context was I had a wetsuit on. It was 6 to 8 foot. The current was pulling left and right like crazy.
And I was training by walking into the water, turning around and walking out to really focus on motor control and development. But I was really getting trashed by the waves. I was getting rolled up into the sand, spitting sand out of my mouth and smiling and yelling and running right back in. And so my best friend to be actually watched me on the beach that day with my mentor. And I was changing out of my wetsuit. Sand was coming out of all sorts of different spaces. And he comes and introduces himself. And my mentor at the time bangs on the wall of the van that I'm changing out of. He's like, Jake, someone wants to meet you. He literally opens the door. I fall out backwards and I stare up at him upside down. I'm like, what's up, man? I'm Jacob. And that's pretty much the person who taught me how to surf from then on. So when I moved down in August in 2014, he took me out 90 days straight. For 90 days straight, we surfed every single day, morning, noon, night, any condition, even in a storm, we surfed it. And that's who taught me how to surf. And we bought a $100 foam board that felt like sandpaper. So I would recommend you always wear a rash guard because that ish hurts really, really badly. So I learned on a cheap board and a cheap wetsuit, but that's how I got started in surfing. And it's been, I was hooked ever since then. My second day of surfing was 6 to 8 foot surf, and I got trashed. I was scared out of my mind, but I love a challenge, and that's what brought me into surfing, and I never left it.
Who is this person? You gotta give them a shout out.
Yeah, so my best buddy, his name's Dan. He is located now in Tennessee, but that man had a great impact on my life. He was literally just a kind human being who saw somebody enjoying themselves, and he found it within his soul to be like, I'm going to help that person out. So that kind of speaks to what we're all here doing, which is about community, coming together to make things better and trying to include everybody. And, I've been a direct beneficiary of that. So, yeah.
That sounds like some rigorous training, 90 days straight.
Yeah.
How was that? Were you tired of it?
No, I actually get hooked on something that I find to be very challenging. It's kind of like a drug almost in a way, but a very healthy drug. I think a lot of the people who are the panelists today can speak to that. We all have a little bit of an adrenaline junkie within us to really push our boundaries, push ourselves. And that kind of relates back to how we were raised with a disability. It's our abilities to adapt and thrive. And I'm sure Coach Whitehead can also speak to that with his athletes. We're probably ultra competitive, ultra, pushing hardcore. And sometimes you guys have to probably pull the leash back and constrain us a little bit because we're always pushing, right? But the reality is, prior to that point, their adaptive experiences might have been very small. For me, that's how it was like. As soon as you kind of gave me a little taste on the tap, I was like, I want the whole thing. Give it all to me. I don't care, So I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but that's my experiences for sure.
Yeah, I guess you did mention this really briefly, but maybe for those like younger athletes that might be involved in adaptive athletics or might not be, what advice would you give to them? Like getting started, getting their toes wet, maybe surfing, maybe not. What would you say to them?
I would say that your experiences are valid, and every step that you take builds into something else. Your first day is never going to be perfect. It's actually going to be quite bad, but I mean, like, that's how we grow. That's how we get out. That's how we get out. And if you have somebody around you that can support you and keep pushing you and encouraging you, like your family, your friends, we all know who those people are. Those will allow us to keep pushing forward. Quinn and Parker and Parker's father, Kevin, and his mom, Sam, those are all great people, great sources of support and encouragement. Quinn put her arm around me, I think, in 2018 at the US Open, where, I did not perform well at all, but I also had a near-death experience there. So maybe that it kind of works out. But she was, she threw her arm around me. She's like, "You're all right, kid.
You're all right, kid. And even though I'm older than her, she had the wherewithal to just say, you're doing all right. You're doing all right. And so that meant a lot to me, and I appreciated it. And we've been friends ever since. So yeah.
Yeah, in the chat, we got Kevin, Parker's dad, who is very active in the chat. Thank you so much. But I actually do want to open up the questions to all the panelists. So starting with Kevin's question, can all of you share how athletics, specifically surfing in this case, but it's open if you want to talk about your other experiences, helped you physically and emotionally?
I'll go ahead and start off with that. For me, I'll go very deep very quickly, but surfing saved my life. There was a lot of trauma, a lot of vulnerability and pain that I had to cope with, and surfing kind of brought it out of me. When you confront waves of consequence, as one of my friends would say, there's nobody else out there but yourself. I mean, Quinn has her father and Parker has his dad, but they both know that if they decide they don't want the wave, they don't have to go on the wave. Well, maybe for Quinn's father would probably push her into the wave, but generally speaking, it's the inner conversation with ourselves that really allows us to figure out what we really want, how we really go about it. And so physically, it's made me into a much more flexible athlete, a much more flexible human being. But emotionally, it's given me emotional intelligence, which is probably the number one most important thing that leads to a healthy, holistic, fulfilling life. And I'm done speaking.
Yes, I'll go next to answer the question. Let me just look over it real quick. Well, honestly, I've played a lot of sports growing up, and I wasn't really the best athlete in those sports. Like, I wasn't the top dog, and I always wanted to be like the number one athlete, and I wasn't specifically in basketball or rugby. And then when I got into WCMX or wheelchair skateboarding, I was just a go-getter, but I still wasn't the top athlete, even though the other skaters loved having me around. I wouldn't get the points, and that's what really just discouraged me, and I ended up not getting the points. And then a couple people said things through the years, and sadly that's what made me kind of fall out of love with the sport and skating. That's originally why I left, was from the negativity of those people of telling me how to skate, how they wanted me to skate. But then I came into surfing, and I was like, oh, surfing, you don't really need a coach. Like, you can do pretty much whatever you want to do on the wave. And let me tell you one thing, surfing has taught me that you're not in control at any point in time. You just gotta go and pretty much hang on for dear life. And that's how I describe my surfing. Sometimes I just drop in and I hang on, and then I just go along for the ride. And just to meet people, and now at the level where I'm nationally ranked 6th in the world, I meet different people all over, and year round, it's fun for me to compete against other women, but I mainly compete against guys, which year round, which is fun for me. I love still beating the guys. It makes me smile a little bit more when I knock them out of the contest, but I would love to see women get more involved in surfing specifically. But yeah, it's definitely helped me.
Awesome. And Parker, I think you're the last one.
All right. Hold on, what's the question? I gotta find it again.
How has athletics, specifically surfing, helped you physically and emotionally?
Well, like a lot of people said, or I kind of interpreted it in my own way, as being like 16, you often find yourself lost and kind of not having a purpose, and you just kind of want to sleep, and that's all you want to do. But surfing specifically gave me a reason to kind of wake up in the morning and get going. Recently, especially in the first semester, I'd be up at 5 in the morning, go pick up my friends, get in the water, and then get out in time for school. And it's given me goals, and it's given me a path, and it's taken me around the world, letting me meet great people like Quinn and Jacob, and come and do things like this. And I don't know where I would be without it. I'd probably just be sitting on the couch. And I'd much rather be here doing things like this or out in the water. So,
of course.
And Jillian, actually, I'd like to hear your experience too, because you have it unique in that you were an athlete and you've experienced this too, but now you actually do it through your work.
Yeah, I played a variety of sports. I was always kind of like, okay, not great. And like all throughout school, and surfing really, like everyone else has kind of said, and I think Jacob really hit it on the head with, you're out there with yourself, you're in control of the situation. Like you can't really lean on other people or other, it's not like you have a team or you have anyone out there with you most of the time. And even people who are out there with assistant, like ultimately you are really responsible for yourself, because it's the ocean and it can do whatever it wants when it wants. So surfing for me emotionally, it's like, especially now, because I'm so in what I'm doing and doing it like 80 plus hours a week per, like right now. So surfing is like when I get to disconnect, no one can call me. I can't be worried about the to-do list. I have to be present in the moment, or I usually don't have a good time and I might hurt myself. Right. So, so surfing, helped me athletically or emotionally in that way. And then, physically, I'm like at my strongest when I surf every day. I made myself surf every day for 100 days before I started, for 100 days straight before I started surf and turf. And I was like at my prime, I was like, I need to do that again. That was like the strongest and most comfortable I've ever been. So I did want to ask the other panelists, because I'm a nosy therapist, how do you feel surfing impacts your tone? Like, does it ever seem to help it? I know I'm imagining cold water makes it way worse. But I just was kind of curious how surfing physically impacts that for you guys.
For me, I've started joking. It's funny that Parker, Jacob, and I all have CP, but I've started joking the last couple weeks that surfing is not the sport for spastic cerebral palsy. I'm, as soon as I hit the water, I'm tight, and Kevin, Parker's dad, have experienced this with me. I'm so tight to where I, like, when it gets to a certain point, and let's say a wipe out on the first couple waves, my tone is so tight where I can't stay balanced on my board. And when I'm colder, I just get tighter and tighter. So I feel like a little rubber band ball when I'm out there. So it's definitely not fun. I'm not comfortable when I surf, like in my own body, but I love surfing so much, I kind of ignore that. So I don't know about Parker and Jacob, but that's how I feel in the water.
Parker or Jacob, do you guys have anything to add?
Well, to a certain extent, I really agree. My body was probably not made for surfing, or much less surfing big, scary, gnarly waves, because sometimes my body just wants to get all tight and shut down and not move. But also at the same time, adding the external variable of surfing, my brain kind of disconnects from my body, and it's sort of like unconscious movements and sort of muscle memory. And being in the water and of course in the sun, it's really relaxing and really meditative. And because it's so meditative mentally, then your body physically starts to adjust to these things that you might be experiencing. And for me, it's the most fun, and it's probably the best therapy I could do.
Awesome.
To answer your question, Jill, I would say that the tone is definitely affected by the degrees and temperature in the water. I will say that the comprehensive workout of getting from the car or getting ready to go surf to the actual process of surfing and then getting back out into the car, it's a holistic process that kind of leaves me feeling very relaxed throughout the day. The colder it is, definitely the more tone you have, the more spasticity you experience. However, I have been working on breath control quite a bit. I will say that with proper breath control, you can kind of moderate how your tone affects your body out there. But once the degrees hit a certain temperature range, breath control really, like, it becomes very challenging. So for context, there's different types of cold. You have Southern California cold, and then you have Northern California cold, and that's very, very different. So when I went to Santa Cruz, I surfed in 50-degree water with a 3-2 wetsuit. That was very, very difficult. And no matter what I did, even with my breath control, I was shaking uncontrollably and my body actually shut down. So, and I even tried to force my legs to step up onto a staircase, and they wouldn't do it. So while I do agree with some of the other panelists, I will say that when I'm out of the water, I actually walk better going back to the car than when I did going to the water, which is crazy, but that's the actual truth for me. That's just for my case.
Yeah, I asked just because I have a few individuals with CP who surf with me, one being a teenager who Jacob's actually met before, and his standing posture, like before and after surfing, is so much better. I think because of the sustained stretch on his hip flexors being in prone and pressing up, that he's a little bit looser, but obviously if we move really fast or it's a lot colder, he has more tone out in the water, but in general, it seems to help him after the fact, even if it might be tougher while he's out there to manage. That's just why I wanted to hear from you guys. So.
And if I can share real quickly, I'm Parker's dad. What I have found is that temperature control is key, right? And I think that that's true whether you're able-bodied or challenged. As soon as any of us gets cold, we start to go a little bit hypertonic. But what we have found is that, at least with Parker, he's more susceptible to the cold. So we buy really good and really warm wetsuits. And so that really helps. And we have found if we can keep them warm, then the actual act of surfing, as you pointed out, is tremendously therapeutic. The reciprocal action of the paddling, if they're able to paddle, the dynamic vestibular sensation of being on the board and floating, and the dynamic motion is tremendous therapy for the vestibular system. The proprioception of the squeezing of the wetsuit, the feel of the water, the Landau position for primitive reflex integration is tremendous. So if we can regulate their temperature either through a nice warm thick wetsuit or by taking them to Costa Rica, Hawaii, or Fiji, which is my personal preference, the act of surfing is tremendous therapy. And then you get into the whole grounding effect of being in the ocean and the emotional support of the whole program. I'm not sure there's better therapy on the planet, but I'm an addict. So what do I
will join you in Fiji. I will join you in Fiji.
I'll go too.
I want to come.
Me too. I'm going.
Yes, true.
I think that's why we all do so good in Hawaii, is because we don't have to worry really about getting cold, and then we just focus on surfing, and it's a really easy and gentle wave. So now that we can really like do what we do, and then we go to Santa Cruz, and it's legit. It's scary. We have a fun time over there.
Well, I still have to wear a wetsuit in Hawaii, which you guys make fun of me, but I weigh 98 pounds soaking wet, so I don't care if I'm a kook in Hawaii. I still have to wear a wetsuit.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. We just bear with us. We have one fun game. I just want to plug Jacob's website, YouTube, IG, Facebook, email here. Take
Yeah.
a peek.
And then he also has a contact tree with like everything on there. So when we share these, go ahead and just check them out. Play around with his website. I know Jacob, you're already here, but I am gonna hype that up. And also check out his YouTube like channel because he even has a video with Quinn that I watched. So it's really cool. If you guys want to just check him out, I definitely would look into it. So.
Check out the recent Steamer Lane edit. It was incredibly intense. You get to see some massive waves. Some of the best surfers in the world in the adaptive space are out there charging super freezing cold waves. I was out there with them. It was really well done, really well made. Appreciate the plug, guys. Thank you.
And actually, Madeline,
yeah,
show his video surfing.
Oh, yeah. Hold on.
Before we get to the It's short, so we can watch it.
I actually surfed with Parker that day.
Oh, nice.
There he is right there.
I remember that day.
I recognize the hair, Parker. Cool.
Thanks.
Cool. Okay, so we're gonna play Two Truths and a Lie with our panelists, and I'm gonna ask each panelist if they could please read their two truths and a lie one at a time once I go to the page. All right, so Jillian, you're up.
My first horse was named Storm. I was originally an art major, and I caught my first wave when I was 5. Sorry, it's like half off the screen, so I was trying to remember what I told you guys.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
I like the similar tone. You're not giving any hint as to what.
Yeah.
Stoic.
And then I forgot to mention we're gonna do a Zoom poll after we read all of them. So keep in mind which ones you think are the lies. Okay, Quinn, you're up.
Mine are my dad and I both won homecoming. I told Tom Brady to hold me like a football, and I love cats.
All right, Parker.
Mine are I've been to more countries than states. I've swam with dolphins and I've been stung by a stingray.
Ooh. Okay.
Mine,
Jacob,
sorry.
yeah.
I've been chased out of the water by a shark. I've traveled to 9 countries. I've had 3 near-death experiences.
Ooh, I know you at least had one.
That's true. He did hint
mention it.
So we're gonna keep the screen up, and I'm gonna go ahead and send the poll. So when you guys see the poll, it'll just be 1, 2, and 3 under each person's name, and the panelists go ahead and guess yours for everyone else too. So you should see the poll show up on your screen. Does everyone see it? Okay, cool. Go ahead and give your responses.
Oh, but you can't move it out of the way to see the. Can you?
Yeah, you can move it.
You can.
Sorry. Okay.
Oh, they're getting a little varied.
Do we just click on it and it counts?
Yeah, are you able to vote?
I don't know.
I think you're a
I
host.
think so.
Do you see responses?
Yeah, can everyone see all the responses?
Bless you, Parker.
No.
Thank you, Jacob.
I can see the responses. That's why.
Okay, we have a couple more people. Okay. Any last people? Well, wait. Oh, wait. Just a couple more seconds. Oh, we're getting those last people coming in. We have four more people. They're kind of, everyone's feeling pretty confident about Quinn's lie. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And then
I know what Quinn's lie is.
And then, but Jacob's, yours are varied, as well as Jillian's a little bit. Parker, you and Quinn actually, people are pretty confident. We have a couple more.
I can't make it easy. I can't make it easy for you guys.
Okay, I'm gonna give you guys 10 more seconds for the last people.
There are 4 panelists, so they may not have filled it out. If there's 4 more people.
Also, I cannot vote because I don't think board members can vote.
No, I know.
No, it doesn't count the board members in the number.
No, yeah, we're just waiting for the other people. But I guess, okay, I'll go ahead and end it, and then we'll share the results. And then Madeline, you can go ahead with yours.
Oh no.
There you go.
Okay. Okay. Justin, you be in charge of saying what everybody chose, and I'll be in charge of telling the actual lie.
Do you know it? I'm pretty sure the panelists know it.
It's on slide. Is
Go
it?
to the next slide, Madeline.
Okay. Technical difficulties.
There
Okay.
you go. So most people said that Jillian's lie was, I caught my first wave at 5, but Jillian, tell us what you think, what the lie is.
That is the lie. Yeah, I didn't start surfing until I was in college. I was supposed to play lacrosse studying abroad, and I had compartment syndrome, so I couldn't play while I was there. I needed something low impact, so I actually got to have a coach a few days a week, and that was my sport while I was doing my study abroad for an athletic trip. So I was an old lady. I wish I started surfing at 5.
You're an art major, and now you're a PT?
Mm-hmm. I took all sorts of AP art classes in high school. I took college art classes in high school. And the beauty of it is the creativity helps with being a PT, helps with designing the website, all the marketing materials, all those great things that I can't pay someone to do right now. I get to use it in that way, which is nice.
Awesome.
Okay, next one.
All right, we got Quinn's. And whoppingly, it's number 3, is people are saying you love cats, and I'm assuming you despise them.
So the lie is I hate cats. I am absolutely terrified of cats. I am petrified, which most people will laugh at. My family laughs at, and yeah. But yeah, I did tell Tom Brady to hold me like a football. I met him down in Costa Rica. I went to this adaptive surf camp really before I even got into surfing, and back then I had glasses I couldn't see, and I just see this giant of a blur of a man on a surfboard next to me, and he came up. This was back when he was with Wes Walker, so it was him and Wes Walker came up and said hi to me and other people, and my dad just picks me up out of my chair and hands me to Tom Brady all awkwardly, and as a joke I was just like, yo Brady, hold me like a football. So there's a picture, and he just laughed. He probably doesn't remember me. If I ever see him, I'm gonna be like, I'm the girl that was down in Costa Rica that told you to hold me like a football. Then he'll probably remember me. But yeah,
I'm sure he would remember that.
I don't know, but yeah.
All right, Parker.
My lie was
Justin. What was the votes?
Oh, most people think it's he's been stung by, or that he has been stung by a stingray.
Well, most people got it right. Yes, I have never been stung. I've been with people on sessions where they have been stung, and I have been close to being stung. and I've written a children's book on what to do if you've been stung by a stingray that I'm getting published later. But thankfully, knock on wood, so far I've never been stung.
What do you do if you get stung by a stingray?
Put your foot in super hot water. It's not very fun.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's sliced open, and then you can't surf for 6 months.
Yeah, which is why I'm glad I've never been stung.
Yeah. It's not fun. You're not missing out.
Oh, okay.
Have you been stung?
Really bad. I was tandem with a little boy with Down syndrome.
Oh.
I looked and my foot was just gushing blood because it tore my foot open, actually.
Oh my God.
Pretty gnarly. So I got to hop on one foot up the beach with a kid. And this was before when I was a little too stubborn to let a lot of people help. So it's good having volunteers now. So in case something like that happens again. Yeah. He's the stingray magnet. I had a volunteer get stung with him too. This kid's amazing, but he's bad luck for stingrays.
All right. And then Jacob.
All right. So the majority said number 2, that the lie is that you've traveled to 9 countries.
That would be correct. I've traveled to 7.
Wow.
It was pretty close, though. It was pretty close.
For vacation or surf or both?
Vacay, travel and experience, and competition as well. So trifecta.
All right. Well, it looks like we
Whoa. Before we move on, 3 near-death experiences.
Yeah, it's kind of a few more now. Yeah. The first one was when I was born, because my parents say that I wasn't breathing. And so they called me the blueberry my dad called me a blueberry when I was born. So they said that I was lucky to breathe. The second one was on my way back from a Paralympic soccer camp. The third one was driving home. And then the fourth one, I'll count it. It was at Steamer Lane. Yeah, Steamer Lane. I took a really bad wave. I took one of the biggest set waves on the head. I was going up over it and it broke right in front of me. It was about 17 foot, and it held me underwater, and it was completely black. Couldn't see any way up, but I could feel my leash pulling me. As I came up for air, I was really deep because I was running out of air, and it was pressurized. As I came up, and I tried to breathe as I broke the surface, foam came in my mouth. And there was about 2 or 3 seconds before the second wave of the set was coming and breaking on top of my head. So I had to calm myself in those 2 or 3 seconds and breathe, and then dive again and get smashed all over again. But that was terrifying for sure. And I was getting pushed closer and closer to the rocks. So yeah, good stuff. You guys should all surf Steamer Lane. Can't wait to see you, Parker and Quinn out there. Let's go, guys.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Oh, it's happening.
All right. I want to say a special thank you to our panelists. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys making the time and coming out and just speaking to us a little bit about your own experiences. We're actually connected to a few of you. Quinn from AJ, so I want to give the shout outs, but AJ got me in contact with you, and Parker, it was actually Kelly, who's here too, Kelly Twitchell, who told me to reach out to you. And Jillian, we were contacting you actually about volunteering, and you gave us the contact to Jacob. And so we really do appreciate that. And it's awesome that you guys know each other so well, because I think that made this event flow a lot more smooth too. We wish you guys the best going out there, catching some waves and continuing on with your guys' journeys. Really do appreciate you guys making time to talk to us about it too.
Thank you guys for inviting all of us out here. It was awesome.
Thank you for having the panel. Appreciate it.
I had a lot of fun. You guys were a joy. Pleasure to have. So just really quick to wrap up for our own members here at SDSU, our next meeting will be March 29th at 11 a.m. It's a GBM, and it's going to be a presentation about different careers within adapted athletics. Joshin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, we can go ahead and stop sharing screen and probably just stop recording. And if you guys want to stay, you guys obviously can ask questions, but everyone's free to skedaddle now. So.